New cars aren't dying because drivers are abusing them. They're dying because they're doing exactly what they were designed to do, just not what owners expect anymore. And if you're shopping used, especially anything built in the last 10 years, the year a car was engineered may matter more than the mileage on the odometer. Stick with me, because the moment this changed explains almost every modern ownership horror story you've heard. I'm Brad with Forced Induction TV, and today we're breaking down why new cars don't last anymore. Not as nostalgia, not as an anti-technology rant, but as a design reality that most buyers don't realize they're buying into. More importantly, we're going to talk about when this shift actually happened, why it changed ownership forever, and how to avoid buying a car that feels great today but quietly becomes a problem later. If you've ever wondered why a 15-year-old car can still feel solid while a 5-year-old car already feels tired, this is going to make that make sense. What people get wrong about build quality. When people say cars don't last like they used to, they usually assume something went wrong in manufacturing. Cheaper materials, worse quality control, lazy engineering. That's not what happened. Modern cars are built better than ever. Tolerances are tighter. Materials are more consistent. Crash safety is dramatically improved. If you dropped a modern car into the 1990s, it would feel like a tank. The real change is that longevity stopped being the primary design goal. Cars today are engineered to meet emissions targets, safety ratings, efficiency standards, and warranty expectations, not to quietly rack up 300,000 miles under average ownership. That doesn't mean engineers stopped caring. It means the scorecard changed. Once durability becomes a trade-off instead of a requirement, ownership changes whether buyers realize it or not. When things really started changing. If you want a real inflection point, look around roughly 2014 through 2018. That's when several major shifts stacked on top of each other at the same time. Turbocharging went mainstream. Direct injection became standard. Emission systems multiplied. Infotainment screens replaced physical controls. Driver assist features went from optional to expected. And software stopped being a helper and became the backbone of how the vehicle actually functions. Before this window, complexity increased slowly. After it, complexity stacked fast. And complexity doesn't usually kill cars mechanically. It kills them practically and economically. That's the part most people miss. The real problem. Simple things aren't simple anymore. Here's the part people don't consciously think about, but they feel it every time they own a newer car. It's not that modern cars are fragile. It's that simple things are no longer simple. A door lock used to be a knob connected to the latch with a metal rod. If it broke, you pulled the door panel, bent the rod back, or replaced the cheap mechanical part. Now the door handle won't even come out of the door without its own motor, wiring harness, control module, and software logic. The handle isn't just a handle anymore, it's a system. The same thing happened everywhere else. Throttle cables became electronic throttle bodies. Mechanical shifters became electronic selectors. Headlights became adaptive motorized assemblies. HVAC knobs became touch panels. Parking brakes became electronic motors. Fuel doors, glove boxes, seats, mirrors, things that used to rely on springs and cables now rely on actuators, sensors, and computers. None of this is inherently bad. In isolation, these systems work incredibly well. The problem is quantity. Every one of these systems adds another failure point, another motor, another module, another wiring path. And unlike mechanical parts, when they fail, they don't fail gracefully. A metal linkage can loosen and still work. An electronic actuator either works or it doesn't. A software-controlled system doesn't degrade, it stops. And when it stops, the car often doesn't know how to ignore it. A door handle fault can disable locking. A shifter fault can prevent the car from going into gear. A parking brake fault can immobilize the vehicle entirely. This is where modern cars lose longevity. Not because engines are exploding earlier, but because too many non-critical systems have become critical. Why cars become uneconomical long before they're worn out. This is the distinction that matters for ownership. Most modern cars don't die because they're worn out. They die because the cost and inconvenience of fixing secondary systems stacks up faster than the car's value. When a power window fails in an older car, it's annoying. When a window module fails in a newer car, it can trigger warning messages, disable other features, and require diagnostic time just to figure out which part of the system is unhappy. That's before you even touch the repair. The same thing happens with door handles, seat motors, electronic steering locks, adaptive headlights, digital clusters, and infotainment screens. None of these stop the engine from running, but they absolutely stop the car from being acceptable to live with. That's how cars become disposable without ever being truly broken. Why software accelerated the problem. Mechanical parts age slowly and predictably. Software doesn't. Updates end. Interfaces lag. Bugs appear years after launch. And when software controls throttle response, braking logic, safety systems, climate control, and even basic functions like starting or shifting, the car's lifespan becomes tied to digital support. Once that support fades, the car doesn't feel old. It feels abandoned. That's a completely new ownership reality, and buyers were never warned it would be part of the deal. Emission systems pushed everything closer to the edge. Modern emission systems are engineering marvels, but they're also incredibly sensitive. They work by running engines hotter, cleaner, and closer to their limits. That's great for emissions. It's brutal for long-term tolerance. Many modern cars aren't retired because they're worn out. They're retired because emissions-related repairs don't make financial sense relative to vehicle value. That's not a defect, that's math. And repairability didn't help the equation. Modern cars are designed for assembly, not service. Components are buried. Labor times are high. Specialized tools and software are required. Even basic repairs often involve removing unrelated systems. When repair costs rise faster than vehicle value, longevity becomes irrelevant, even if the car could technically keep going. This is the part used car buyers need to hear. If you're shopping used, this is the most important takeaway. Longevity risk does not increase evenly year by year. It spikes after that mid-20-teens complexity jump. That doesn't mean you should avoid all newer cars. It means you should be cautious of feature-dense trims, first-generation tech, heavy software dependency, and powertrains pushed hard for efficiency over margin. The safest long-term buys are often boring cars built after major safety improvements, but before tech bloat became the selling point. Newer does not automatically mean better. Sometimes it just means more to go wrong. Why this feels like decline. Modern cars are incredible when new. Safer, faster, quieter, more efficient. But when decline starts, it's sharper because more systems age at the same time. That doesn't mean modern cars are trash. It means ownership now requires awareness. And most buyers were never told that. New cars don't last anymore because they weren't designed to last forever. They were designed to meet modern demands. Some of those demands help drivers, but most help manufacturers. The key is understanding when that shift happened and how much complexity you're willing to own 10 years from now. So here's the real question. Would you rather own the most advanced car on the lot, or the one most likely to still make sense a decade later? Let me know in the comments what year you think cars peaked for long-term ownership. And subscribe to Forced Induction TV if you want conversations that actually help you make smarter decisions, not just sell you the next thing.